Welcome back to Enlighten Up for episode 55, Manifesting via Orgasms, Cancers, Anger Frequency, and Leveling Up with Jessica Alstrom. We have a great show set out for you today because Jessica has fantastic insight through her own self-discovery process on leveling up. We're going to talk about later in the show what it means to level up and the parallels of video games to our life challenges. Many of us think that as we do our self-discovery, life should get easier, but in fact it gets harder. So why is that? And how can we change our perception of these problems into challenges so that we can embrace them and face them with a kind of rocky mindset where we're ready to go get them? We're going to talk about the universe flatlining our reality so that we can start over with what we actually want and how the universe does that by clearing our path. We're going to get into quantum mechanics. And of course, we're going to also talk about cancer as Jessica has healed herself from fibromyalgia and that she noticed with many clients that cancer has the same frequency as anger. How do you heal cancer? Going deep into the cellular biochemistry. And of course, how can this show not be fun when you're talking about orgasms? We're going to talk about how you can actually detoxify your body through masturbation, and of course, how you can bring abundance into your life through your very own orgasms. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the episode and find out all of the great stuff Jessica has to share with us. Welcome back to Enlighten Up, everyone. I hope you're all doing very well. I'm here with Michael, Lisa, and Brian, and today we have Jessica Alstrom joining us. And Jessica is a spiritual teacher, intuitive life coach, medical intuitive, author, radio show host, and winner of the 2016 Soulful Award for World Server. Wow, she's also a co-owner of Transcendence Wellness Center, founder of the Transcendence International Consciousness Academy, and creator of the online global coaching forum, Quantum Life. Jessica, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you guys?
Oh, we're all great.
Well? Good.
Yeah. I'm really excited to have you on because you do a lot of great stuff, and including you have a wealth of knowledge in quantum physics, and it looks like biochemistry and early childhood development, energetic communication. My goodness, you have a huge resume. How did you get into all of this?
Well, like I was talking to you guys a little bit offline, nothing challenges the mind like trauma. And I was, one of those kids that had early childhood trauma and, came from a broken home and decided that from a really early age, just things didn't make sense. Like I always had questions, and I always questioned people's behavior. And I didn't really realize it, but I was pretty much an intuitive kid. Someone would say something and I would hear the echo of a different conversation. And it was like someone would say, like, hey, how are you doing? And you're like, you're fine. And then underneath, you're like, they're so not fine. And so it was like that level of empathy, of understanding that there's a couple of different voices going on there. There's a couple of different qualities that make up the human experience. And through my own kind of I'll just call it self-loathing, it's like by the time I was 18, I just really wanted to figure out why I was here, what the point of all of this was, was God real? Is science the key? What the hell is the subconscious mind, and why does it seem to be sabotaging my reality? And then the whole new age spiritual movement that was kind of coming on the scene. And so I had questions, and I'm one of those people that I don't listen to what people say and take it as my belief system. Like I have to have cold, hard evidence. So I remember reading this book, and I don't remember what it was, but it was old school, and it said, all of the answers are within. So I decided that I was going to make my life a living experiment, and that I was going to test the law of attraction. I was going to test all of these laws of physics that pertained to all these new age ideas. And I was going to be the guinea pig of my own reality without opening my mouth and sharing my philosophy. I wanted to see if I could manifest money through my thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. I wanted to see if I could repair my own nervous system damage I had autoimmune disease. I wanted to see if I could repair my biochemistry through the use of focused epigenetic training. And basically by the time I was 35, I had healed some major trauma within, I had opened up a small franchise of organic products that marketed, green organic smoothies. And I was basically doing like backdoor, sideways life coaching that dealt with quantum reality that was not mainstream in Kansas, let me tell you. And I was helping people basically dematerialize cancer and shift their entire focal points of their reality. But really, it came from hardcore self study and perspective. I put every quantum theory that I had to the test on myself. Before I opened my mouth publicly about any of this, I wanted to know what was truth and what was fiction, and is there any difference between truth and fiction, and are we all just in this holographic universe seeing ourselves through the eyes of our own imagination? These were the questions I was asking myself at like 20 years old. And basically, like now, with pretty high assurance, I can go up against any neurosurgeon or doctor or anybody on the planet and have a conversation about quantum mechanics, spirituality, and how it is the gap and perspective of what is absent in science, and where like one door closes, another door opens. Because to me, science is like, one room of a house, and spirituality is the rest of the house. So it's like, and to me, I don't even like the term spirituality because I came raised with a lot of dogma attached to those words. So to me, I want to call the journey like self-realization. We're not here to find God. We're here to realize that we have
God
the
doesn't
potential.
exist.
We have the potential to be that essence. So again, like you said, God doesn't exist. And it's a metaphor for there's nothing really outside of you, which there's truth to every idea. So the atheists have it right, the spirituality has it right, but again, it's one tiny spectrum of the whole micro and macro organism that is the universe.
Well, you really speak with like a lot of conviction. I already believe you, and you don't even have to tell me anything. Like that's how much strongly you come across. But I love that you used your life as a living experiment. I think Brian's tried a couple of experiments to see if he's felt anything, and through a couple of experiences with Michael, he's had some interesting stuff. But what do you say to people who have the odd experience here or there, but then they start to doubt everything?
Well, it's part of your subconscious makeup. I like to teach that there's three aspects of you. The yogis call it mind, body, soul. I call it the me, myself, and I. And the way that I break this down is that's basically all there is in the universe is the me, myself, and I. And the me is kind of like that disassociated critic inside of your head that doubts you. It's the kid that never gets picked for the softball team. It's your mother's voice. It's your haters. It's your limits. It's your disassociation. It's all of those things. And that's kind of something that society hand delivered to you before the age of 7. And then there's that inner like visionary inside of you. And there's that, no matter what's happening, you're always seeing the other side, and you're seeing the potential in yourself. And then that's the I am, which the spiritual movement refers to that source within you, or that consciousness inside of you, that real truth that's connected with all the other algorithms of the universe. And then the myself, what I call a myself, is the body, and the body is the bridge. The body is the bridge between that small, wounded, mortal version of you and that pure, positive potential and immortal version of you. And the body's kind of holding it all together. And what I talk about pain and trauma and basically contradiction and self-sabotage, it's when those two perspectives are literally at war, and they're literally causing the body to be in pain. Because I can look at a body and I can see cancer, but if I ask a little bit deeper question and look inside the cancer, I can see the frequency of anger. And anger is the same vibrational essence of what cancer is. And so I can say, are you still pissed at your mom? Are you still pissed at your dad? Are you upset with yourself? And we can navigate through the frequency of the emotional connection, and we can have a byproduct change in the biochemistry. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I mean, Lisa and I are like you're spoon feeding us like our favorite dinner right now. I don't know, Michael, Brian, what do you guys think right now?
If you can do that, why isn't cancer cured?
Oh, come on, you guys know that.
You guys, hey, you know what? I
I'm dead serious. I don't want to hear.
Let's go head to head with that question.
Don't even start with the programming shit. No, people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars to save themselves from cancer.
You can talk to the cancer and figure it out.
It's very inexpensive so far.
Why is there cancer?
I understand.
Well, first and foremost, are we asking the question, why is there cancer, or why is this not the solution everywhere? Because those are two different questions.
Potato.
Right.
No, it's not, Brian. Get clear on your question.
Why this is not this... I want to know why it's not the solution everywhere, because I know a lot of people are going through cancer.
If we're going to send them your way,
why not?
If we're going to get really deep, then there has to be some sort of conspiracy theory too, as well, because sick people make really good clients, and basically all wars are funded through big pharma. So people like me are basically shunned and called freaks and called, we're called taboo. And I mean, the thing is if you look through the history books, the shamans that basically were on this planet from the beginning of the recorded word were doing exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing it scientifically because my job is to bring proof. So I have hooked many clients up to EEG machines, which test the brain span of what's happening emotionally in the body. And through that perspective, we can see the shift and change. So it's my job as a visionary, as a teacher, to represent the spiritual community and bridge the gap between ignorance and basically money. Because cancer is a money game at this point. There's been a cure for cancer since it was created. And I will tell you, it was created. So if it's created, then every problem has a solution, because this is a universe of duality, and you cannot have a problem without the existing solution in the exact same universe.
Yeah, and you know what? The reason why I am just so frustrated with you asking that question, not because you're not justified in asking it, but with all of the conversations we've had on this podcast about the pharmaceutical industry, how the food industry likes to keep us sick, and then what the battle the people who are trying to go into alternative medicine have trying to prove themselves that other stuff works, and getting called what she said, like a conspiracy theorist or a quack, or, there's people aren't just so willing to believe it. And so they're not willing to try it. They believe that doctors are there to serve them to their highest good. And so most people are going to go to traditional medicine for their help. They're not going to go to people like Jessica.
Well, and let me take it one step further. Because the thing is I don't have the magic pill.
Nick.
I have I can locate the issue, but it takes the individual to go on a journey within to heal their own cancer. I can't put my hand on you and say, you're healed, without your free will interaction, because it is you that is creating the cancer. So it is you that has to dissolve the cancer by taking responsibility. And let me clarify that word, responsibility, the ability to respond. How many people do you know who actually respond to their own needs, respond to their own well-being, respond to their own health? Everybody wants the quick fix. Everybody's on WebMD. Everybody's looking outside of themselves for the answer. And what I'm saying is I'll take you on this journey, but the answers are located in the trauma with your dad, or the issues with your mom, or the fact that you were abused or abandoned or rejected, or the fact that you didn't feel safe as a child, and take them into those places. And you know what? I'm telling you, for the most part, 90% of the collective isn't ready to go into the depths of hell of themselves. So it's not a market yet where the world is awake enough to take responsibility for themselves. Because when I cured my autoimmune disease and I had fibromyalgia, it took some deep, and what I call shadow work, which is alchemy, diving into myself and taking responsibility for my own shit in order to heal myself. I didn't have, a bang out, drag out with my mom and say, how could you do this to me? I had to face myself in the mirror. And that was the hardest thing that I've ever done. And that's why I take people through mentorships, because I said, you know what? I'm not your guru. You're your guru, but you can look in the mirror and you can see yourself through me, and I will hold space for you until you self-realize that it is you creating this. And then that's where the magic is. But that's not a mainstream, that's not, people still, they want the quick fix. They want the psychic reading. And I said, you know what? Screw the psychic readings. Because when I look at the quantum field of potential, I can tell you 5 probabilities that'll happen to you tomorrow, depending on where you're focused. But if your focus changes, your reality changes. So psychics are looking at one timeline or one version of the future based on the current vibration or focal point of the individual. Does that make sense?
We talked about this in our last podcast about how difficult it would be to predict something because of so many different possible outcomes.
And that's why when people call me and say, hey, can you tell me this about myself? I said, okay, so like, really, do you want to know the answer of what you're about to manifest? Or do you want to know the potential of what you could manifest? Because I can take you into a couple different directions. And most people, if they're calling a psychic, they're in a lower frequency of desperation, doubt, fear, judgment, or shame. And so what they're going to manifest is not what they want to hear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nicole and I have definitely learned, I think, a lesson this year or, the past year about looking more inside than outside for guidance. That realizing that we know what it is and we don't have to ask.
Yep. I will tell you, I opened up a wellness center in 2014 called Transcendence, and it was wellness through awareness. And my entire purpose and intention was to take people through their own wellness by using their own awareness, which means they needed to level up. And, I do quantum healing, and I do a lot of energy work, and I do a lot of the hands-on stuff. But what I noticed is people kept coming back to me the next week. And I'm going, why are you back? We just worked on this. We just fixed this. And so what I realized is that until people actually have the education behind all of the philosophy of the holographic earth game that we're playing here, they're going to keep coming back sick, because the frequency changes only through the emotional state of being. So if my emotion is that I'm in fear and I go see a psychic or I go see a healer, and then the healer reorganizes my frequency in my energy body, and then I go back into my toxic relationship, guess where I'm going to be in a week from now? I'm going to be at my Reiki practitioner. I'm going to be at my massage therapist. I'm going to be at my chiropractor. And I got really tired of that. I got burnt out. I had 3 wellness centers and I closed all of them. And I opened up Transcendence Consciousness Academy, which is basically, it's a university of taking responsibility and awareness of your own shit. I mean, the whole university is based on teaching quantum mechanics at a 4th grade level, teaching basic self-realization and awareness training, hypnotherapy through conscious states of awakening, energy medicine, epigenetics. So everybody had a toolbox big enough where they would never have to look outside of themselves.
Oh. I was just having a conversation with someone about this yesterday, just the fact that to really wrap your head around the idea that you're never, ever a victim. And if you can take responsibility for everything in your life, that truly is empowering. Like you immediately just get to take your power back.
Yep.
Because you're not looking outside of you for it, at your spouse or your children or, the government or medical industry or anyone. And you say, no, I am the one. My choices are the reason that I'm here. Exactly. Or the way that I think about things. And I just think that it's truly the most empowering thing is to just completely 100% get rid of that victim.
Yep. I actually do. I do a process called time travel, and you guys, you critics are going to love this, you skeptics. But what I actually do is, like you said, we are never a victim. We always can take responsibility. But for the first 7 years of our life, our brain is in a state of theta. And if you understand brain waves, what theta means is in a constant state of learning and channeling and experiencing and adapting and observing without necessarily deciding whether it is right or wrong. So it's almost like a brain without judgment that's a sponge. So, defining what love looks like by watching mom and dad's relationship, defining what love is based on how you're being treated. That's why love usually comes with the fear of loss right behind it, or the worry or the grief that is associated with it. The word God gets programmed early on and creates all kinds of havoc. So when these first 7 years of us not in a state where we could be conscious and say yes or no to the belief systems that are being spoon-fed us, then what we need to do is, as we grow up and those patterns begin to manifest in our reality, which means like the alcoholic dad, you're going to manifest in your first relationship, and you're going to basically be rolling these quantum patterns into everything based on, needing daddy, needing mommy, not being seen and heard, not feeling loved, not feeling safe. You roll these patterns into your reality. And so what I do is I say, okay, well, you may not have been present for your first 7 years of being able to create your own belief systems, but as soon as you become aware, as soon as you wake up or get woke or whatever you want to call it, it is your responsibility to go back and rewrite the script. Because if you look at the holographic experience of a human, everything is just recorded in moments of sensation and feeling. And so what I can do is I can take someone back to 18 months or three years old, and I can have them take their power back, which means they can change their mind, rewrite the story of what actually occurred at year 3. They can take their power back. They can change the script. They can flip the script. And then I take them through a journey of changing it in their biochemistry, because cellular memory is what's holding the frequency of the emotional trauma or, displacement or disassociation or whatever is going on. And so what I do is I teach people how to basically get in their body instead of escaping it. Open up the cellular memory. The memories come up, the emotions start to flow, the tears, the anger, the rage, whatever begins to come. I have that child, because they literally start talking as a child, go back into those moments and take their power back. I can't tell you how many times I had my mom arrested, or, I went back and had changed the script just so I had empowerment within my own body. And because everything is run through hormones in the body, I can bring someone into oxytocin. I can bring them into the endorphins and the dopamine by taking them through a guided meditation journey and rewriting their entire hormonal track around a certain incident that basically was adrenaline spiked, and I'm replacing it with oxytocin. So I can take someone in the most extreme toxic moment of their life and change the frequency of the biochemistry or the cell and turn it into oxytocin, and they can literally have a completely different memory of the experience. And the memory, because we're at the core of ourselves, electromagnetic energy, our cells are the magnets that manifest reality. So if I'm traumatized, I keep manifesting traumatic events. If I'm excited and blissed out and joyful and a genius, then I'm going to magnetize myself to that, because everything is just a mirror.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Especially I started off as a massage therapist when I entered the alternative wellness industry. And I can't tell you how many times people would break down on my table into tears and have no idea why they were crying.
Yes,
they weren't thinking
exactly.
of anything. They weren't, it's not like they had a bad day or something traumatic has happened that week. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. And I'm like, your cells hold your memories. Your cells hold your emotions. Something's just getting released. And a lot of people don't realize how much we carry in our body.
Right. The whole story of everything that we believe ourselves to be is carried at a cellular level. And that's where my love of biochemistry comes in, because accessing biochemistry and quantum mechanics, it's almost like quantum mechanics is the macro and biochemistry is the micro of our experience. So, and you can see that it's a perfect reflective match of what's going on.
Yeah. So when I was doing massage therapy as well, I learned live cell microscopy. So for me, for what you're talking about, it was so important for me to see what the cells actually looked like, because I'm such a visual person. And it's so crazy, because I literally, the video I'm releasing tomorrow, I talk about this. So it's really funny that this is coming up right now. And for me to, under the microscope, see my red blood cells, see where there's liver damage, see where I'm vitamin C deficient, see if there's toxins that they're coming up as bright different colors in my bloodstream under the microscope, just being able to see that allowed me to be able to close my eyes, use my imagination, go into my body and start cleaning it up in my mind.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I just don't like, because when you start to use your imagination, which I know a lot of times we get, crap for and being like, oh, you're just in your head. But when you really start to use your imagination as a tool to really manifest what you want in your reality, as you call it, into your hologram, then like you really do have a lot of power and control over anything that you want it to be.
You have all control.
Yeah.
You have absolute control because you have a choice where you flow your consciousness. And to me, I define imagination is I am magician. So I always know that where my frontal cortex is basically helping me produce the perception of my imaginary quantum unlimited potential versus my memory systems of my brain that are holding me in a constant state of anchoring and, attachment. So yes, we can prove that basically the brain is producing the holographic experience through what the yogis or the new age people will call the third eye. I'm going to call the frontal cortex. And that is literally like a projector that is projecting out the reality that either you choose or your default looking at from the past. So you have a choice in every moment. And honestly, choice is the only thing that we actually own in this experience. We don't take the body with us. We don't take anything. We've got choice. I can look at what I choose to see and where I choose to go and what the potential of a good or bad situation is, or I can live on default of the past experiences and I can limit myself to basically recording 75 years of repeated patterns until my body destroys itself because of the trauma that it's created within not ever moving out of a box.
I know our skeptics have been silenced for a while, and I don't know if it's because they feel shut down or
because he makes so much sense.
So ask the questions so that you don't say.
You guys go way past so fast, and you and Lisa are eating the shit up, and Brian and I'm pretty sure are just sitting there going, okay, whatever you say. I mean, you just basically said 90% of people aren't curable for cancer, so that's why that's a problem, but none of us are like really ready to accept any of this stuff. And I mean, it was just, to me, it was pointless the last 10 minutes. I hate to say it, Jessica.
Why was it pointless?
This is what we're dealing with collectively, so I'm used to this.
Brian, what are your thoughts? Maybe I'm just completely off balance here.
Oh, no, you're not passing that buck on me.
Okay, you just rambled off. I'm saying this as if you're in the same room, Jessica, you just rambled off a whole bunch of things. And Lisa and Nicole are like your cheerleaders, rooting. And I'm like going, okay, but. And it's like you just go probably 100 miles past the exit. And I'm like, whoa. But like I didn't want to interrupt your flow. And so it's like I was just asking, why aren't you making money off of cancer curable? And you went to first 7 years of your life, you're not like God's your enemy. I mean, what the hell are you talking about?
I love it.
Were you not listening to anything she said?
Okay. No, I was. I just stopped listening. I'm sorry. You're right, Nicole.
No, it's totally good because this is, I don't have these conversations with my neighbor next door or even necessarily my boyfriend because these conversations, like, to be honest, are pointless unless you're trying to educate someone in their own game. So it's like these aren't conversations that are the mainstream yet. But if we wanted to go deeper into the evolution that is underway, I could tell you that the 90% of people who aren't ready yet will be. And they will be because people are starting to ask questions and people are starting to wake up to the fact that the Western medicine is not making them healed and well, and they're realizing the Band-Aids. And also, in that being said, when people are wanting answers, I mean, the whole brain is designed to problem solve. So when people want answers, the brain will go looking. And isn't it interesting how the last, 20 years, all of the ancient information is starting to kind of trickle back forward. Shamanism, the Aboriginal cultures and how they dealt with illness and how they dealt with all these things. And one of my favorite groups in our collective to work with for myself is veterans. And I love working with our veterans because, it's such a cool situation that they go through, not to mention like, the first 7 years of their life. But here is a group of people who are basically programmed outside of their choice and then thrown out into a situation where they have to behave critically under the duress of these new belief systems that they're programmed in a short amount of time. And when they come out of that, there's no place for them to rehabilitate and go back to their natural state. So they're basically thrown back out into the collective, right? And and we've got suicides, and we've got drug addiction, and we've got sex addiction, and we've got all these things. And people are like, oh, that's so sad. I go, no. Basically, our veterans are trained adrenaline junkies, and when they come back, they're still trained adrenaline junkies. So that means that the wife becomes the enemy, the job becomes the enemy, because that's what they're trained to do. So the brain is plastic. It's neuroplasticity. So if we can program a brain to do something or be something or have something, then we can create it, we can deprogram it. And that's really where the future is going to be. I'm getting ready to put together my TED Talk about this group, because there's no difference between a traumatized child that had to live in a house for 10 years under constant duress and adrenaline versus our veterans. So with him saying, oh gosh, 90%, what's the fucking point of all of this if no one's actually awake? That's not true, because people like myself and people like that are in our industry that are constantly saying, you know what, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm not going to take sickness for an answer. I'm not going to take poverty for an answer. I'm not going to take segregation as an answer. It's like, that's why we call ourselves spiritual gangsters, because why not?
I wanted just to answer Michael's question, or just to go back to this cancer thing and simplify it a little bit. I mean, we've talked about this on numerous podcasts about big pharma and the programming that goes on. And we have been so programmed to be disempowered that it's really hard, for the 90% of the people to latch on, including yourself, Michael, that you are empowered to cure your own cancer. We're taught
the funny thing
from
is,
the moment
Steve
we're
Jobs
born.
thought that too, and look where he's at. I mean, it's like you have this stuff that you guys are telling us, and I'm not talking about big pharma. I'm not a big fan of big pharma. You guys know that, but like, you're sitting there going, oh, just fix yourself on the inside and you'll be fine. And
no, come on, that's not fair. She says that you have to go deep and go into dark shadow. It's not just a simple quick fix.
Go deep and fix yourself.
Because,
okay, yeah, my bad.
Let's talk about Steve Jobs, because I actually researched him, because he had a lot of good quotes that I dug into, because I was like, yeah, I like what he's throwing down. But when I looked in his life a little bit deeper, what I realized is that beautiful Steve Jobs was a philosopher. There's a very big difference between a philosopher and actually walking your talk. Just because I have the answers to the universal questions does not mean that I'm living them. It does not mean that I'm a walking, talking representation of what I teach. How many teachers, how many coaches, how many of those are actually doing what they teach about? So when we
teach what we most need to learn.
Exactly, because that's why I didn't come public with any of this stuff till I had made my 6 figures, till I had healed my body, till I had fixed my childhood, till I had repaired my relationship with my own kids, cleaned up my crap from the past. There was no way that I was going to go out into the public and be a philosopher. Philosophy is dead. It is all about who are you transparently. It's not about authentic, because Steve Jobs came across authentic. To me, there's a big difference between being authentic and being transparent, which means transparency is come look in my bank account, come spend a week with me and my kids, come see how I treat my body, come see who I am when I'm not in the public eye or I'm not on the stage. And then we can have a conversation about how all of this works. Because the people that are sick and broke, which is why I never went to a healer, which is why I never followed a guru, because I would study them and then I would be like, their life's a fucking mess behind closed doors, but they've got all the right words. I wanted to find someone or something that was actually a living, breathing, prophet of what they're saying versus a guru, because I don't associate with that. So I get where you're going with it.
Yeah, and Brian, I don't know if you remember, like we actually talked about this on an episode and you said, yeah, but that's a long, like people have been saying that for years. And I'm like, yeah, they've been saying it, they haven't been doing it. They're like, it's just a
Right.
huge difference. It takes a lot of work to really go deep and go into the shadows. It's not something that happens overnight, and it sometimes takes decades. It's especially if you're trying to figure it out on your own and you don't know anything else to do, like you don't have someone guiding you. And so like
Right.
it's really a journey. It's never ending. It's never ending.
Never. No, but it gets super fun.
I don't think people
It
want
gets
to do
fun when you learn the rules of the
Agreed.
game. To me, as soon as you understand you're not a victim and you create your reality and it's all just a dream that we'll wake up from, it's virtual reality. As soon as you realize that it's virtual reality, then you can start being the code creator. You can be the coder of your own game. You can edit, you can direct, you can act, you can whatever. And I will tell you the last year has been exactly that for me. Is I've been basically writing my own reality through my own coding, which means understanding frequency and vibration and going, okay, if I'm in the frequency of fear, what can I really create? If I'm in a frequency of anger, what kind of reality can I create? But if I'm in the frequency of maybe curiosity, you know what I mean? There's a lot more potential to that. And so I always stayed in a space of curiosity, even when literally my life was falling apart, which it has several times during this process. Is okay, I'm going to stay in a state of curiosity and I'm going to ask questions about, how is this helping me grow? How is this trauma helping me? How is this setback? If we looked at the word challenge in the dictionary, it would actually say dual. And so there are no problems, there are just challenges. But you cannot access potential in a problem. You can only access potential in a challenge. Because, see, a problem is like, see how that's so low? Like, well, there it is. We have no hope, 90%. Screw us all. We're fucked. No. But if everything's a challenge, it's like, bring it on. I mean, isn't that a better mindset? Like curiosity, challenge, potential, possibilities versus limitation. Exactly.
Opportunity.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things like I learned is to take your fears and turn them into like lighthouses, like opportunities where your greatest potential is, and stop looking at everything from I know this is a very well-known thing, like the glass half full, but for some of us, many of us, it's just a difference of everything that you have is in your left hand and everything you don't have is in your right hand. And we often choose to look at our right hand, what we don't have. And it's just a matter of perception.
Well, the brain is actually programmed to look at what you don't have. I mean, the brain is programmed from a very early age to look and see what it needs to fill as the void. So as a collective, we are I could seriously for 30 minutes give you the best compliments in the world. You're beautiful, you're awesome, you're intelligent, great radio voice, blah, 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 love your work. Oh, but you've got fat ankles. You know what you're going to remember at night when you rest your head on your pillow? That I said you had fat ankles. You're not going to remember that for 30 minutes I told you how amazing you were, because that's not how the human brain is designed. It's designed to be a problem solver. So now it's questioning its own identity, and now that's how we're controllable. Is because the brain is designed. So if we're going to use, you've heard that myth that humans only use 10% of their brain. Well, I'll tell you, I'm using a lot more of my brain because I'm accessing different parts of my brain based on potential instead of limitation.
Isn't that 10% the conscious brain, though, that 90% of what we're doing in our actions come from the subconscious
Exactly,
brain?
but how do you make the subconscious conscious? Because that's where your unlimited potential is. If you don't know what the hell's going on in there, you don't have access to it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole beauty of meditation, or at least having some time where you're self-reflective. Because if you're not starting to pay attention to that little voice that, we never hear, but as soon as you start to go silent, and then you start to pay attention to all the negative shit talk that you're actually got running in the background, but you never pay attention to because you're so busy with life, or you're running a million errands, or you're talking to a ton of people and you never stop to just be self-reflective, then you'll never know what's going on in that subconscious.
Yeah. And that's the basis of my work, is to make the subconscious conscious, because then you are accessing your basically unlimited potential, because the subconscious houses a lot of negative dark events, but it also houses gifts, intuition, what we would call miracles. And we access that from basically our own vibrant potential of knowing ourselves as the micro and macro of the universe itself. So I cannot access my potential through my memories. I have to access it through the subconscious, superconscious areas, which is the all-knowing. You guys have heard of the Akashic records. You guys have heard of, it's almost like, I call Akashic records is like the Google of the universe. It's like anything and everything. We're never actually learning anything. We're remembering. And if you look at that word, remember, put back together, reminding, so we're not actually learning anything. We're just remembering. And the more that we remember ourselves, the more aware we become, and the more we act on our potential. Because that's what's wrong with our society. It's not that we're not educating ourselves. It's just that we're not showing up. We're not demonstrating what we're learning as a new age community. And that's what pisses me off about the spiritual community, is there's so many people with a PhD reference of conversationalists. They can go head to head me with conversationalists, but they're broke. They're talking behind people's backs. They're doing namaste behind your back. And they're literally like living in a vibration of lack and poverty and sickness. Some of the most amazing healers I've ever met have been close to death. And I'm like, what a contradiction. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so much more important to be transparent than it is to be just a wealth of knowledge in this industry, which is why I don't associate with the spiritual communities, to be honest. That's why I stay completely quantum. I stay scientific. I call myself basically a living experiment. And yes, that people have named me a spiritual teacher, but I think that's just what looks good on a Google search at this point.
It's how people will be able to relate to it.
I think that's true for anybody, though.
What's that?
To be honest and transparent and
real.
I mean, that's how I've tried to live my life. I don't think it's limited to spirituality or teachers.
No, it's not. But if you really look at true people that are transparent, they're nowhere near perfect. You know what I mean? It's like the emotional journey of being here on this planet is that we get to experience emotions, which means it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be pissed off. It's okay to be in grief. Sure. It's okay to experience things. And it's when we trap them down, that's when we lose our transparency, because now we've got secrets. Secrets create dense energy. They create flaws. Flaws create lower frequency. Lower frequency basically turns you into a victim by default. But we're trained as a collective, don't do that, don't feel that, don't say that, don't cry. I mean, early on, money doesn't grow on trees, get your head out of the clouds, you'll never amount to anything.
And not to talk about your real problems, like not to be real about who you are and what's going on with you. Like it makes you less of a person, or you're not perfect and you can't share those things with people. And, on Facebook, we only post the happy pictures. I mean, that's the whole reason events. I posted that blog about orgasm and manifestation, because one of the things that I teach in biochemistry is the different satellite systems that are inside of your body called chakras, and what the purpose of them are, and how basically you've got a football team inside of you of 7 players, and they need to be all on the same team because they're communicating frequency to the universe, and that's giving you a feedback of your own reality. And so it's like, to me, the greatest manipulation on the planet is our sexuality. And that is, if you study the ancient scripts, the Egyptians were using orgasm for immortality. And here we are really going left or right, whatever you want to call it. But literally, when you study this stuff, you see the potential of the human body, because it is technically microscopic, 80% non-physical and 20% physical. So it's like there's multi-dimensions going on in the human body that can only be accessed through basically focal points and potential. Let's talk about that orgasm.
Let's talk about that blog.
Yeah, because I read that blog and I found it to be it just made so much sense to me, because whenever anybody talks about manifesting, the key element is the emotion and the feeling behind it. Not just visualizing what it is, but actually feeling what it feels like to be there.
Yep.
And so if you would share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the base, and I will tell you that was one of my funnest experiments. That was a good time, me, myself, and I.
I bet.
But really, how I came to understand that is obviously taking all the bits and pieces of understanding both the micro and macro of the chakra systems, of our biochemistry, of electromagnetic energy, and electromagnetic energy, which is basically cellular memory and thought. Thought is electric, cellular memory is magnetic. So the two of those are charged. And then let's go into really what manifestation is. Manifestation is the byproduct of a divine feminine, and I'll clarify, and that is basically vision. Divine feminine is the vision, and the divine masculine is considered the action. So you need both vision and action to manifest anything. So think about how a baby is made, right? So you've got this vision, which is the woman's created with the egg that's holding space inside of her body. And then you've got the action. The man is gifting the action side to the woman, and through ecstasy, hopefully, right, we're creating life. And so is there any difference between manifesting a car or your dream house or that awesome relationship or a healthy body? You're producing basically a baby. Your vision becomes real. So the idea in the universe is it takes a masculine, feminine energy to create reality, and it has to be in the synchronization of ecstasy, which is the frequency of gamma. And gamma is basically like that love drug that people are paying high dollars on the street to get, that you can actually have through orgasm. So I thought to myself, well, what if I accessed my second chakra, which is the sacral, which is my sexuality and my manifestation. That's my manifestation center. It's my creation and my sexuality. And I basically got my cells on board with my vision, because if I'm visualizing a new car, it's in my mind. And my entire cellular system has to be driving that car for my body to believe I own that car and I am that car, because the body deals with I ams. So I am that car. I've had an explosion of knowing, and then I have the ecstasy of release, which is the surrender part of manifestation. And I teach manifestation extremely based on physics. So the first step is desire. The last step is surrender. Isn't that an orgasm?
And that's also like masculine, feminine down to a T.
Yeah. The party's all in one. And I will tell you, and I'm not going to get into my childhood sob story, but there was a lot of sexual trauma in my first 10 years of life. And when I started doing this manifestational experiment on myself, I purified a shit ton of sexual guilt and shame by basically holding a very pure thought that was non-sexual and getting myself in a state of ecstasy and releasing, holding on to the focal point of my desired vision that was non-sexual. Talk about cleaning house vibrationally down yonder. Literally, like my whole game changed as far as how I saw myself, how I was in relationship with men, relationship dynamics. It's like all aberration began to disappear because I was cleaning up my own trauma, because it exists there too. I mean, I ask women all the time, and because nothing's off limit in my sessions, what do you masturbate about? What's your go-to fantasy? And you'll be surprised how dark some of it is. And again, there's no judgment, because it is what it is, but it's coming from guilt and shame, humiliation, fear, resentment, rejection. And so they're trying to overcompensate with these fantasies. I mean, the number one fantasy in the United States that women use to orgasm by themselves is rape. Okay, so what does that tell you about what we need to purify? Yes. Yes.
That blows my mind.
Yes, being taken, you know. And,
no, I can actually believe that, because that was actually in my younger years, that was actually one of mine too.
Yeah, see?
And it wasn't so much rape, but like,
yeah, it's more of like being taken and being dominated.
Yeah, and that's shifted now, but I'll be honest, that's definitely was for me through my late teens and 20s. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you know, in the universe, we're always constantly trying to find balance. So when we it's like the textbook narcissist empath relationship that we see everywhere. You know, it's like the narcissist is trying to balance it out with the empath, and the empath is trying to find its power through the narcissist, and we're always searching for balance in the universe. And so we're literally we're attracted to what it is that we need to balance within our lives. That's why we go searching for daddy in the toxic relationships and searching for mom in the toxic relationships, because we're trying to find balance and harmony with our own feelings.
So this is an interesting experiment that, you know, I'd like to challenge everyone on this call to try at some point. over
and post the blogs, you know, and have the formula, because it's important to stick with the formula. Otherwise, you're just having a good time.
I mean, I'm pretty sure our listeners would be interested in a show where we all try this technique and see if we actually manifest something or not.
Well, and, you know, I encourage masturbation.
Not on air, Brian.
Even in my early years of just being straight nutritionist, you know, I would put masturbate daily in their diet plan, and you know, their husbands would call me and be like, thank you so much. But the reason why I would put that in the diet plan was because, as far as like the best detox in the world, is you want to blow out some adrenaline and some cortisol in your system, get yourself into ecstasy. And ecstasy is basically oxytocin. It's a hormone that basically just turns everything into light inside your body. So it's the best.
When you say ecstasy, are you talking about physical ecstasy?
I'm talking
or
about
are you
the
talking
emotion
about the
ecstasy. So the emotion ecstasy, which means it's just like you're blissed out for that second of orgasm, and everything is right in the universe, and you feel just everything. You know, you feel every cell. And, you know, like I said, people are paying big bucks to get that sensation through drugs. But orgasm, even though it's only a second or a minute or whatever, it can clean the body out of so much toxins. It gets the oxygen flowing. It gets the balance. It's the chakras balanced. I mean, it really does a lot for your body. So even if people were just, and you know, a lot of people are like, oh gosh, I couldn't do that. That's so frowned upon. Well, I mean, everything I teach is so far outside of the collective box that, you know, it's okay that people don't resonate with what I'm saying. All I'm saying is what it's done for me and thousands of my clients has been basically just purifying a biological system.
Well, religions have pushed that narrative as far as, you know, it's not a thing that you should be doing. Like, it just doesn't even make any sense. Well, it makes sense because they don't want you to align your chakras and know your full empowerment. Yes. And they want to have, you know, the idea is to keep you disempowered. Big Pharma is the new religion. So,
it's like back in the day, it was don't touch yourself, don't look at yourself, don't love yourself. Now they're going, here, take this pill so you don't feel anything. You know, I mean, what's the difference? It's just technology has increased. Same programs running.
Yeah, and we live in a society that really doesn't want us to go inward.
Exactly.
Everything's outside of us. The answers are always out there. You know, we're just never taught to really question what's going on inside of us, and also have the social support around us when we are doing that. Like, that is also very important to maintaining that kind of supportive health. It's not just coming from within, but when you have the support on the outside as well.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Like, it's almost like every man for themselves, and like it's just.
Well, and that's what keeps the society numb. You know, I just did a broadcast on my Facebook page a couple of days ago because I wanted to give a quantum perspective of the border crisis that was going on in the United States. And it was funny because Facebook flagged it and took it off my page, which I was like, interesting. I think I'll go live on YouTube, which I love. I mean, I just love that. So, I love giving people a different perspective of, I know that the collective is pushing this, the power is outside of you, God is outside of you, blah, blah, blah. But, the power of YouTube to me and the power of iTunes and the power of these podcasts, that's why I love doing them, is because if you get one tiny nugget out of this 90 minutes or however long we're on, it could change the whole course of your life. I can't tell you how many emails I get that say, your podcast about light workers or twin flames or whatever, like literally saved my life. And I'm going, all I did was tell you who you were or give you an explanation of what this is, but it's like, this is how we take our power back. Is we are here to be anarchists and break the rules abundantly by using the ammunition of information and light. That is our job. We're here to literally be light anarchists and shower the planet with information. People don't have to take my what I'm saying as truth. They don't. But to me, something resonates or it doesn't. And to me, the word resonate, that means your residency. That's your home. That's your truth. So if something resonates with you, hold on to it, because in the sea of what doesn't feel good and what isn't right, we can access all of these amazing people out there like yourselves that are changing the world through speaking your truth, by showing up, by working on your clients. And it's like the 100 monkey effect. So how are we going to change this cancer problem? Is first and foremost, people are literally 700% of the American diet has decided that they are interested in organic food in the last 2 years. What does that tell you? So,
Yeah, true.
Change is happening. And even though you don't see it in the fear report or the news, which is basically hypnotic programming of fear, just because you don't see what's going on in the news, that's not what's going on the planet. Because there are people literally changing the world, taking problems and turning them into total solutions everywhere on this planet. And YouTube and iTunes and all of these forums give us a place to share that. And that's where our power is.
But ultimately, that's still only going to reach people that want to be reached.
But again, 100 monkey effect. If you know that story, that last monkey who was not washing his food finally decided that if he was going to be with everybody else, he was going to get on board. I mean, think about it. Look, yoga, trendy, right? Meditation, trendy. Organic food, trendy. Veganism, trendy, right? So even people that are just bandwagoners are jumping on the consciousness train. And my feeling is, hell yeah, because eventually they're going to become what they believe. Does that make sense?
And I,
Sure.
just like you and with Lisa as well, we all kind of started on this journey in our teens, like really becoming more aware. And there has been so much growth in the last 2 decades, 2.5 decades. And it's, if you're just kind of like paying attention to it in the last 5 or so, then it may seem like there's not as much. But when you go back 20, 25 years, it's monumental from where we were to where we are now.
Yes.
And I think we just have to always keep the eye on the ball of moving forward and not looking at our progress of where we aren't yet, but where we are right now.
Yes.
The hand that's full, not the one that's empty.
That we're here to take stock, not score. Because if we take score, we'll never be where we are, because we're never going to get this done. There's always going to be something new for us to evolve to. But if we take stock, we look at what we do have to work with. It's almost like a chef can go into any kitchen and make a masterpiece, not with what it doesn't have, but with what it does have. And we are the chefs of our reality. And so whenever someone says, oh, well, I didn't manifest this, I go, well, look at how far you came this year. Look, you're feeling better. You're in a better relationship. Just because you didn't have the $1 million yet does not mean you have not overcome 90% of the challenges. People are so programmed to take score of themselves and to judge themselves. And if we would just take stock, it's a hell of a good time. You see, wow, I'm proud of myself. I've come a long way in a year or 6 months or 2 weeks. And that just changes the perspective.
And I think also, too, we're programmed to give up just before that tipping point where everything starts to really change, like there just seems to be this pattern with people of throwing in the towel right before
Well, you know why,
the
though?
palpable change.
I mean, you know why. I mean, when I teach the holographic Earth game, think about it. When's the last time you guys played a video game or watched someone play a video game? Did it get easier? Okay, good. Did it get easier as you were about to level to the next level, or did it get harder? Right? It gets harder, and it feels like it's coming from everywhere, because at the end of the level, you're faced with everything you've defeated until the end. Okay, so you're at the beginning you're dodging bullets, and then you start dodging bullets and missiles and zombies and all these things, and by the end you're dodging all of those things. And so somebody referred to it like a new level. There's always a new devil, or what I say is there's always a dragon to defeat at every level of this virtual reality game. And you got to say, it's almost like you say, I am this new person, and the universe says, prove it. And the universe is waiting for you to be who you said you were in chaos and destruction, because destruction is basically rebirth. So if we're here to basically rebirth ourselves through different levels of awareness, we're going to have to actually simultaneously destroy the old versions of ourselves and level up in each game, which scientifically is designed to be harder. It's physics.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really great analogy. And it's so true. And you're right, because I think just, people are like, why? Because Lisa and I have said, there's like, it's just so hard, and like, it's, and it's been like 25 years on this journey. And I myself have done a lot of deep shadow work, but I know there's still more to do. I'm not kidding myself. I know it's still there, but I think when you take stock, like you said, of all the progress and see how much better life is when you're acting from that new place of rebirth versus the old place where it was quite destructive to who you were and anything around you, then it does give you that motivation to keep going. But if you don't take stock of it, then I can see why you would give up.
Well, yeah, because it's like, here you are, you're doing better, you're feeling better, you're getting proud of yourself, you're getting some self-love, you're getting stronger, you're getting wiser, and then all of a sudden, your entire dark shadow past, shines its reary head on you, and in that moment, the universe is saying, prove your state of being. Show me your frequency, and I'll show you what's behind the door. I mean, you've heard this a million times, gurus say, everything you want is on the other side of fear. So anytime, and this goes for you girls, because I know you're leveling up right now in life, and every time something starts getting really challenging me, I literally clap my hands together in like that like evil genius laugh, and I go, oh my gosh, I'm leveling up. This must be the end of this particular journey, which means I'm going to level up into a whole new game, which means I'm going from the minors to the majors, girlfriend. And there, then all my power comes back, because we were just talking about not feeling like a victim. How about in that moment go, okay, everything's happening at once and shit just hit the fan and I lost my job and I lost my boyfriend. I want to give you a quick story of where this happened with one of my clients. She came to me and she said, Jess, I want to be happy. And I said, okay. But you realize that if you're asking the universe to be happy, it's going to remove everything that's in the way of that. And she was like, bring it. In 1 week, her fiance called off the wedding. She lost her job of 16 years with some diamond center. And her boyfriend said she had to move out of her house in 1 week. And she came to me and she was like, basically ready to fire me. And I go, everything's perfect. She was like, what do you mean? I said, you asked to be happy. All you did was complain about how you didn't love this fiance. You always complained about how they devalued you at work, and that house that you lived in was not where you saw yourself. You asked and it was given. It's like you asked to be happy. So the universe flatlined your reality so you could start again. Exactly. And so she was like, okay, so we literally rebuilt from the rubble. And she realized that she never loved that person, but that's just what you do in this society, is you date someone for 3 years and you marry them. She didn't want to work retail. She wanted to open her own business. It's like, again, that's that leveling up period, is when you ask for something, you set a powerful intention, the universe starts moving mountains and breaking shit down to make way for you to be who you say you are. But usually at the 9th hour, the 12th hour, we go, just kidding. I'm going back into fear. This is too hard. Everything's hitting me at once. And the universe goes, okay, well, when you're ready, we'll be here. We'll repeat this pattern when you're ready. And I can't tell you how many times I've been through that. But when you have this idea that when you're leveling up, it's going to get harder, it's like you just put on your favorite power playlist, work out like a beast, and just power through it. You know what I mean? It's like, and then it becomes just like this amazing experience where you know that that's the end, and that it's not over, but it's just beginning.
Yeah, I feel like this past year, the more I delved into myself, the rockier things started to get, like in my own head, just like, ups and downs emotionally and just physically, and just, continually having to power through. But I think, there is a rainbow, at the end, because if you continue on that road, it does start to get easier. At least for me, things started to balance out to where I understood that I was in complete control. And once I understood that I was in complete control, then it wasn't as scary as it had been in the past.
Yeah, it's a cool way to think about it, or to the idea of leveling up. Things, you're right, things get harder, and then you break through that wall, and then the beginning part of the next level is not as hard.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, but in the beginning, it's like, walking past that room that you have in your house that's just your storage room, that's your clutter of all your past and your unfinished projects. And you keep walking by it and you keep walking by it. And one day you go, screw it. And you walk in and you turn on the light. That's why it gets so confusing. And your job is to go in there and organize it and confront it and take responsibility for it and clean it up. Because again, there was that term, ignorance is bliss. And I was like, that's really true. Because when you turn the light on to your own darkest places of your mind, you see what a clusterfuck it is. It's a shit show. So it's like, okay, now my job is to take responsibility and clean it up. And then.
But is that not why most people aren't ready for this journey?
Yeah.
Because, they're ignorant of where they can go. So they have this perception of, okay, I'm happy, I'm blissful.
Well, and
and there's a lot of fear, I think, too, looking at this stuff.
Exactly. Ignorance is bliss, because
I think of my parents, we try to introduce my parents to things, and
health, like some healthier eating.
Especially healthful things. And, like, oh, watch this, try to get them to watch some documentaries or things that we have found really helpful. And they just, I don't think they can see it. I don't think they can understand it.
And it's because they choose not to. You know what I mean? It's like when you've been going, identity is extremely important to part of the subconscious. And when you take that identity away, no matter how uncomfortable it is, it's like you talk to the woman that's being abused and she says, I just can't leave. It's like there's an identity attached to that. It's like, well, that would be failure if I left my marriage. That would be so hard if I changed my diet. I'm too old. It's like, what's the point? Because, and you know what we got to do is we got to love them where they're at. And we got to be an example. So when people say, oh, my loved ones just won't wake up, or they won't take care of themselves, or they won't get out of fear, I said, so well, how does the mama chick teach the baby chicks? Does she sit down and life coach them, or does she walk her fucking talk? Does she act as an example and say, this is how you swim, this is what happiness is? So your job to your parents and my job to my children is to not preach at them or life coach them, but be the happiest version of myself, because then I'm going to teach them what happiness is. If I tell them to be happy,
I've seen a difference in.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In his parents just watching us, because we've changed our diet and just we've talked about things with them, not preaching necessarily, but just this is what we're doing. And I've noticed the past couple times we've gone out to dinner with them at a restaurant that Brian's mother actually is changing the things that she's ordering. She's making healthier choices.
Right. Because no one wants to be preached at. But we are humans, so we learn through observation. We learn by watching others, and we're going, wow, they're eating this and they look vibrant and they're happy and they're healthy. You know, they're doing this and they're abundant. You know,
That's
it's
why.
like,
No, I was going to say that's why like people won't hire a personal trainer who's overweight.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But it's so true.
Right.
Like we've talked about this a couple of times on our show, that being the model is the best way to teach people, not by preaching. And just by being you and putting out whatever good energy that you're doing as a result of like you doing that, people start to pick up on it. And the people that are actually interested in wanting to make changes with themselves ask the questions.
Right. And I think the hardest place is for people who knew you when you were not your highest level of potential, and that they re-meet you. And I have an example of that. You know, I'm 43 and my oldest daughter is 23 and my second daughter is 21. And so they knew me when I was unconscious and pretty much crazy. You know what I mean? They knew me at my darkest times. They were little. I was feeding their 7-year cycle chaos, trust me. And as I began to go on this journey and fall in love with myself through my own awareness, I realized very early on that telling them what I was doing and how they should do it was hypocritical, because they saw me when I wasn't this person and all of a sudden I am this person. So who am I? So what I decided to do was literally just pull back, and I started learning about conscious parenting and understanding that my job is to be an example and a reflection. My job is to be no different than the animal kingdom and show through guidance how my life is working through my own expression, not by telling them who they are, what they should be. Oh my God, you have to read this book and you have to take this seminar and you have to do. It's like, they're like, really? No, thanks. We knew you when you were a loser. You know what I mean? And so one of the things that my daughter said to me, which was one of my highlights, is she said, Mom, you have been through hell. She said, but I've never met a happier person in my life. And everything you set out to achieve, you do. And I mean, this is like me not telling her anything. And like, I literally was like, oh my gosh, mommy moment.
Oh my God, what a beautiful compliment to come from your daughter.
Exactly. And one of the things that I also teach people in intimate situations, because that word intimacy is into me, I see. So if you try to life coach or preach to your intimate relationships, it's going to go south, because it's a deep reflection of your own ego within those people. So basically the best way for you to have really healthy relationships with super close people around you, your spouse, your kids, is to literally ask questions instead of give answers. So my daughter will say, well, where should I go to college? Should I go to Oregon or here? And I says, well, which one feels more exciting? Well, this one's over here. Well, where do you see yourself? You know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You see how I'm not giving advice? Because as soon as I'm going, well, you should go here because of this, blah, blah, blah. It's like now I'm teaching her to not listen to her GPS inside of herself. Mm-hmm. I'm saying I have the answers.
Great.
So I have a whole bunch of conscious parenting on YouTube, because my greatest spiritual teacher on the planet is my 5-year-old. And I've watched his cycle unfold. And I did it wrong in the beginning with my older girls. And now I'm showing the example of what's right. And I'm doing it right with my little guy. And it's like, it's amazing to see the difference, you know, teaching someone to feel their feelings and to have their voice and to listen to their own GPS and tap into their own intuition at 5, which is just blowing my mind.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you so much for sharing all of that. This has like been an awesome show. I loved everything that you had to say. And I just think it's so helpful to so many people who are ready to hear that kind of information, because it's empowering. You're really empowering people to take the reins of their life, to get to the helm of their ship and steer it in whichever direction they want to. And so I just love that kind of information. And I think that's really inspiring. So thank you so much for being on, Jessica.
Absolutely. You can tell I enjoy what I get to do. So, and I can tell you guys are just amazing. So I'm glad we got to connect. I'm glad we got to have this interaction. I'm glad that whoever gets to hear this will find some point or seed or resonancy with it. And, who knows? It's like, to me, it's all about sharing. Yeah. It's not about, it's nothing about sharing and just us being able to come together and have these conversations that just get people curious.
Well, I'm really curious about your university, so I hope we can put. I don't think we have time to talk about it now, but we can put it in the show notes.
I'm going to leave all of Jessica's information in the show notes. But just really quickly, Jessica, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, the best place, honestly, to find me is my website, www.jessicaalstrom.com. Or if you're a social media person, I use Facebook as my global coaching forum. I have a bunch of virtual classrooms. We're in 106 countries right now, but I use Facebook because it can support it can support my community the way it is. And that's going to be found under Jessica Alstrom Quantum Life on Facebook. I have a community group where I go in and share, what's going on in the universe, what's going on in reality. I have a tendency to teach time, relationship, health, and money because that's really what we're all dealing with. And then for people who are more ready, they can go into my private classrooms that are accessible on Facebook right there. So they can find me that way. Also, I've got about 300 videos on YouTube if anyone wants to geek out with me. And that's Transcendence Wellness Center or Jessica Alstrom on YouTube.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And I'm going to practice your orgasmic manifestation.
Good. I would love feedback on that. Make it something good. Yes.
I will. And I'll let all the audience know as well. So Stay tuned for that. Awesome. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. And stay tuned because we've got more great guests lined up for July. And Jessica, thanks again. I think we will have you back on for sure.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Thank you so
Nice
much.
meeting you guys.